Hi, everyone, and welcome to week 7. In week 7, we're going to be focusing on reading chapter 7 and discussion board number 4. For this week, we're going to look at the role of production costs, and it's going to be a good foundational week for how we start to really look at how businesses deal with cost of production. Now, the cost of production has some key aspects to it. We're going to look at the role of accounting cost and economic cost. Accounting costs are going to look at anything that we can measure based off of a receipt, where economic cost is going to be utilizing the aspect of opportunity costs. Now, opportunity cost is looking at what you have to give up to get in decisions that you have to make. Now, when we look at sunk costs, these are costs that cannot be recovered. For example, if you focus on a sunk cost, a cost, let's say you want to go to a movie on a week away, and it's a big movie premiere, so you buy a ticket in advance, and then that week comes up and you can't recover the cost because you can't go to the movie. That would be classified as a sunk cost. Firms face large sunk costs when they're faced with a lot of challenges, and firms will have to deal with these sunk costs. So industries that have high sunk costs are not going to have as much competition. Now, we have some key costs that we're going to look at. We have total cost, which equals fixed cost plus variable cost. Fixed cost is something like rent on a building, okay? So the more we produce, let's say we own a Wendy's. Now let's say we produce 1,000 hamburgers. If we produce 1,000 hamburgers, our monthly rent could still be $2,000 a month. Now let's say we only produce 100 hamburgers. Our monthly rent would still be $2,000 a month. So fixed costs do not depend on output, whereas variable costs depend on output. And firms are going to like to make decisions based off of their variable cost. Now, firms will have to figure out whether they should stay in business or not. And we're going to look at two different time periods. We're going to look at the short run, and we're going to look at the long run. And we look at the short run, we're going to be focused on the role of a presence of one fixed cost, whereas the long run, all costs are variable and all costs can change. So that's the key. Short run has the presence of one fixed cost. Long run, all costs are variable. Now, for this week, I'm going to be giving you examples of cost, and I'll be focusing on these costs in the discussion board. And I think you'll find it very interesting because what we're going to look at with these costs is how to make determinations of where it's best to produce at. Now, for example, when a business changes, more output's being produced. If you look at right here, more output. You notice fixed costs never change. However, variable costs are always changing. Total cost is always changing as well because variable costs are changing. This fluctuation in costs are going to cause a lot of challenges in markets. Now, if I own a business and the business is growing substantially, when I have to find a way to be profitable, and there's two ways to be profitable. One way would be to decrease my costs or increase my revenue. And a lot of firms get that very confused. And they get that confused because they try to increase their revenue. But they don't realize sometimes when you increase revenue dramatically, it leads to increase in cost as well. So for this week, you have the practice quiz right here. And you have the discussion board. Make sure to take the practice quiz just to be helpful. I think you'll really enjoy it because it goes through some questions that you'll see later on. Now for this week, I want you to explain two examples of fixed and variable costs in a fast food restaurant. So label those two out and tell me why they're fixed costs, why they're variable costs. Now, if you were a manager, how would you deal with these costs when your business starts to slow? So how would you deal with the variable and how would you deal with the fixed cost? In your answer, make sure to discuss both fixed and variable costs. Now, how do you think your restaurant will be able to produce in the economies of scale for their long run costs? So what that means is how can I produce in that economies of scale range? And the economies of scale range is when my production costs increase, when my output increases, my production costs decrease. And also with the discussions, make sure to focus on the requirements. And let me give you over here to one of the other requirements so we can review them. With the requirements, make sure to focus on this right here. First post by Thursday. In your initial post, make sure to have an in-text citation and reference, 10 points for content development, 5 points for use of economic terms, 20 points for peer responses, which can be to any responses that I have chosen as well, or I've posted to any students or any random questions as well. But I look forward to your effort this week, and if you have any questions, let me know, but really focus on those requirements, as I wish you the best.